What's going on? Slip is here bringing you some Esper Brain Control in Modern. So you will see that outside of the fusing Beck shenanigans with Jar and Expertise, we're not really doing anything terribly exciting with this deck. We're not casting Breaking Entering, crap like that. And that's really the way I want it, for better or for worse, because I want a deck that's as stable as possible when we're not drawing this combo, and also a deck that does well like doing other things, answering other things early, and drawing into the combo, so we don't have to really make ourselves top heavy with a bunch of copies of Expertise and things like that. So I'm running 2 Srams right now. I used to run 4 Jar, and I love Jar and Drago. I think it's a much better card than people would imagine when they haven't played it, especially when you have 2 out. It's really good. And it's something to consider. But at the moment, I like Thraum's Expertise a lot. There's a lot of mid-range floating around, and it kind of breaks that matchup. It blocks Etch Champion. It gives us some aggressive starts that we wouldn't have otherwise with just Jar, that I think are pretty potent right now. Otherwise, the deck's just a collection of Esper Drago cards in the Wafo Tapa style, like Charm and Cryptic and Spell Snare and the normal removal suite. Logic Knots are our main 2-mana counter, and you'll notice that I'm just kind of shaving numbers to fit in this package here, right? So instead of running 4 Charm, 4 Cryptic, we're shaving a little bit. And these cards, like the Beck Call package, it's replacing cards like Rev, cards like Secure the Wastes, and because we don't have those X spells that really motivate us to draw a crap ton of lands, we get to run 25, which is kind of nice. Brain and Jar's mana cheating ability helps with that a little bit. Snapcaster Cryptic is not something we're doing on a regular basis, so 25 lands is good enough for us. The only strange main deck card you'll see is a single Spell Pierce, and while that might seem pretty suspect in a deck that wants to win the game on like turn 20 or something, it's actually been pretty good for me, especially when I was playing 4 Jar. It might be slightly worse playing 3, but being able to play Jar on my turn 3, say, and then Spell Pierce a K command, Spell Pierce a Lily, Spell Pierce a Karn, right? These are things we want to be able to do, and in general, it's been a useful card for me. Also on the play, it can counter, say, an Inquisition or a Thoughtseize in order to protect our combo against mid-range, which is a matchup where if we are able to fuse Beck Call early or late, we're more or less winning the match. So main deck's pretty straightforward, and so is the sideboard. You'll notice I'm still running 2 Engineered Explosives, even though it's not great right now. I haven't found it to be terrible, even if I only board in 1 a lot of the matchups that I would board it in. I do like being able to do something against Lantern, which one sees reasonably often on Moto at least. And this is something I might cut if I were going to a big paper tournament, but for the moment, I'm keeping 2. Where, say this was really good against Zoicide before, it's pretty mediocre now. And so for decks like that, we're running 2 copies of Ruined Halo, which is generally just a good card. We bring it in against Eldrazi. It's obviously fine against Valakut, things like that. Even against Cheerios or something, you could bring in Ruined Halo. Incidentally, Engineered Explosives on 0 is pretty solid against Cheerios, something people might not do too often. But I haven't lost a game where I've dropped it for 0, I believe. Core Firewalker is our burn hate, along with a second copy of Blessed Alliance. And that's also kind of strange. That's really the strange thing in the sideboard. I like Timely a lot, but you can lose resolving Timely once or twice against burn if you don't do a lot of other stuff. So Timely's a lot better if you draw it late if you're in trouble. Core Firewalker is much better if you play it on turn 2 than Timely is on turn 3. And it's also harder for the burn player to play around. So I decided in that matchup, which is a little bad for us, to try to kind of front load our hate for the matchup and see how playing Core Firewalker is going to do for us. And in general, I've actually been doing a little better against burn. That might be my play, that might be variance, might be a number of things. But since I started running Core Firewalker, I've been having a little more success. All in all, the deck's pretty straightforward otherwise. I do run 1 Commandeer for various Planeswalker-based decks like Tron and Sun and Moon and things like that. Even if it's a kind of mediocre card, it's actually good against Ad Nauseam games 2 and 3 because they realize they're not going to beat us on the stack very often. Especially Surgical Extraction is absurd against Ad Nauseam because it requires them to have 3 pacts to go off if we have 2 counters and a surgical, right? It basically doubles as a counter for Pact Wars because we say Dispel Ad Nauseam, they pact it, we let Pact resolve, we surgical pact, they have to pact the surgical, and then we counter Ad Nauseam, right? So it's kind of extra counters there for a card that's like has a lot of utility across matchups. And Commandeer is really good when they're fishing for Boseiju, is what the point I'm trying to get to in a long-winded fashion. Boseiju, I've definitely won a couple of games of Ad Nauseam, commandeering and Ad Nause, and then drawing like as much of my deck as possible to find a surgical and surgical Ad Nause. So it's it's okay there. It's better than just like a card for the Tron matchup, but it's obviously kind of a mech card, and you could take it or leave it. So that's the deck. We're going to run through a competitive league and see how we do, and I'll see you for match 1.